there are prescribed things that we have to do according to VICA. So the course is pretty much set. There are SACs that have to be done even though I write the SACs, so I write them around the study design. And there are options for the way that you can write them. You can write them in short answer, you can write them in essay form, you can do, a folio, but in any case, the key criteria and the questions that are being asked by VICA and the things that have to be covered are always the same across the state. I feel like the course, it's going to be different for me this year because the course is different. So, which is going to be challenging and interesting. It means adapting things that I'm used to now, that I've gotten used to over the last, 4 or 5 years, and adapting the way that I teach, although I think that's going to be really good for me because I feel like they've found a way to really link all the elements of the course together. So now I feel like the things that were already making connections in my brain that weren't necessarily connected fully through the course are really connected. So the whole course is about analysing theatre making and being a theatre maker, and it all matches, it all meshes in together now. So there are certain things that have to be done. My school's also very, there's a lot of pressure on doing well at my school. So, and the students who do my class, who do theatre studies, know it's an academic subject. They know they know that the written component's worth a lot. It's worth 35% of their end of year mark, and they know that it's hard to do really well. We get really good marks in theatre studies at our school, but the kids work extremely hard, and we put a lot of, I can't think of the word now, there's a lot of emphasis put on exams and on exam study and exam technique and practice exams and practicing writing and practicing learning how to interpret the study design so that you can use the study design language in your work. And I feel like one thing that I've gotten much better at over time is understanding what a written exam actually means, and what it means is that you've taught the course well and that the kids have understood all year what they're doing and why they're doing it, and you use the terminology all the time when you speak in your classroom, in your discussions with them, in your planning, in their folios, when you mark their work, so that by the time you get to the point where you're actually practicing exams, they're practicing things they know, and they're writing about things they know. But there is high expectation at my school for them to do well. So getting below 40, which is still considered really good at the majority of schools, is not considered good at my school. So we work hard on the course, on the VICA course work being done properly, and making sure that we really stick to the things that we're supposed to do, that we know the monologue rules, that we look at the criteria properly, that we understand what the criteria mean, that the kids really understand what the criteria mean. I get people experts in to come watch the kids do their monologues, so that I have another opinion apart from my own. That I don't think they should ever just show one person their piece of work. I get other people to look at their written work so that I feel comfortable with the way that I'm marking them throughout the year. I feel like VICA, obviously for me, the main thing is that I have to adhere to the VICA rules. But I do feel like I've got creativity and a scope for creativity and room to nurture their talent and their the things that they love, and I feel like the course really allows that. So there's so much time when you're putting on the production and when you're planning for the monologue, or now the stagecraft I don't know what it's called, the stagecraft performance or stagecraft presentation, that there's so much time to prepare for those things now that within that time you've got a lot of room to create your own activities and to make sure that the students get to really develop themselves as theatre makers and explore and research and trial things and have a process folio and do things that they don't necessarily have to do prescribed by Vika, but that you feel like they should do, and that will get the most out of them, and that will give them, quality of learning, I guess.
For a big part of my career, it hasn't been shaped by that at all. My students, to begin with, I started off with only Year 9 and 10 classes running it as an elective, and not really much interest in anybody going further than that. And I'm a one-man faculty with sort of nobody looking over my shoulder to see what I'm doing, or no other classes that I have to match up with. So for a lot of my career, I've been able to run drama classes however I want. That often runs parallel to what the curriculum is, and I obviously use that as guidelines to help me out because I don't have a big background in drama myself. But there is a lot of freedom, or has been a lot of freedom for me to do whatever I want, and if that doesn't necessarily match up with exactly where the documentation says I should go, then that hasn't been a big deal. In the last couple of years, we've had sort of an admin change at the school, and they're much keener on having everything written down and documented and all that kind of stuff, and that's forced me to be a bit more rigorous in writing down my curriculum. Again, I'm still a one-man faculty though, and I don't think I stick very much to what I write down anyway. It's very fluid and it changes regularly. I actually tried to make that point when they tried to make me write it down. I said, there's not a point. I don't have a drama background. Anybody who comes in is either going to have a drama background and will do it differently, or they won't have a drama background and they're going to have to make things up that make sense to themselves anyway. But they still wanted me to write it down anyway. So there has been that pressure to write it down, and with that comes the pressure to, well, okay, I better make sure that I am touching on the outcomes and the strategies and stuff that are actually set down that we're supposed to be following. So yeah.
I think there's two ways that we have to think about planning at our school in particular. We're a private school, so we want to keep from year 7 through to 10, we want to comply with the national curriculum, but there's also this kind of driving force that says that we need to offer something extra, and that also it needs to align with school priorities, which for us are things like formative assessment, use of the online learning system, integrating technology in new and innovative ways. And so for me, I guess, I think about planning, but I also don't want to use technology for technology's sake. There's no point going, I have to use the iPad, so I'll just get them to look up this website. Like, that's just not even remotely useful. It's more about, are there apps that are valuable for what we're doing, especially in the middle school years, or is it just using it for the sake of using it? Is there a way that I can find a way for it to be actually enhancing their learning rather than just an added extra, which can be challenging, which can be, pretty tricky. In terms of VCE, obviously that's a separate entity, but I guess I always think backwards as well. Like, if I need them to start at year 11 and know XYZ, how can I start introducing that at year 8, year 9, in terms of electives? How can I start introducing them to stagecraft, or at least some of the terminology? So planning kind of works both ways, I suppose. The Australian curriculum thing is interesting for us because I looked across the board at, are we meeting these standards? Are we going above and beyond? Are we assessing in the right way? And then there's obviously those kind of curriculum priorities. And I start to think, are we dealing with sustainability? Are we dealing with Indigenous Australia? Where are we at with that? And so it's about planning and using that again to be embedded within the curriculum, but not just as now we're going to do a lesson on sustainability. Let's create something. So it's juggling all of it, I suppose.
My curriculum is constantly fighting the corporate giant that is our school, and you think, oh, you're going to set up a whole room, get it ready for the kids and do this sort of blind movement workshop, and then they tell you there's an award ceremony for the rowing crew, and then you're not going to get anything out of the kids who've sat there and watched the rowing crew come on stage for 45 minutes of their class, and they're resentful. So some of the forces that get in the way are in fact the everyday running of a school. But we have the national curriculum, as you know. There are VCE guidelines, and you can be audited at any time. So there is documentation, and curriculums can be extremely crowded. One of the things I've done over the school holidays is go through and look at our curriculum and work out what, because I taught Year 7 for the first time last year, and I taught Year 8 for the first time in a while. Kids get tired at the end of a term. So introducing something really dynamic like puppetry in week 4, which is about the start of November, to Year 7s, when they're well and truly over school, it's starting to get hot, the older kids are gone, and the holiday atmosphere is coming into the centre. You tend to think, okay, that was a great project, but the kids' heads weren't there. So it's not just about the curriculum, it's about the timing. And I think you need to understand, the start of the year is all very, very exciting for older kids, but little kids it can intimidate. I think some of the best work you can do is at all year levels, around March and April, depending on when Easter is, around May, introducing new syllabus, interesting, more challenging things, and July, August. So middle of or start of each term, not the end of the term, and certainly not near the end of the year. So this year I've completely readjusted the curriculum, having observed kids reacting to stuff. By the end of the Year 7, some of those boys were too cool for school, so introducing sock puppets just didn't cut it, and I look like a bit of a tool. So timing, reading the classes, seeing what's going on in the week. If they've got the ATH sports, don't try and teach them trust exercises the period before, because the testosterone will be flying around the classroom. These sorts of things impact everybody's classes, and you just need to understand the culture of the kids and the culture of the school.
So Year 12 VCE is prescribed, and you can't change what the kids will be assessed on in the final outcome. To that degree, I need to make sure that my class is prepared throughout Year 12 and Year 11 to hit that final Year 12 exam and the performance exam as well. Because I want to give those kids the best opportunity that I can to get really good marks in that class, I actually worked backwards from Year 12 and made essential learnings for every year level, so that Year 10s, after Year 10, they'll get to Year 11 ready to learn the Year 11 skills they need to know, so that when they get to Year 12, they're not doing anything new, they're just doing everything to a better standard. And so then you work backwards again, what do Year 9s need to be able to do? So I suppose from 7, 8, 9 and 10, that curriculum that I would, in a perfect world, would teach has been dictated by the VCE study design. However, year 7s at my school only get 2 lessons a term, although this year we're going to have 1 lesson a semester. And it's not a really long time to work with them. In year 8, they choose all of their elective subjects, and they can only have 1 arts subject. So if they really like music and drama, they need to choose. So in year 7, you kind of feel like you need to win them over somehow so that they choose your subject in year 8. But you don't want to make it seem like it's just fun and games, because you don't want people choosing it in year 8 when they don't actually want to be there. So year 7, I kind of knew, and we have 28 feeder schools. So we have 28 schools where those kids will come to the school that I teach at. And they all have different experiences. Some don't offer drama. Some schools have 12 kids in the entire primary school, so they're always in the same class with different year levels. So they really have a different set of skills based in the one class. So you have to start, well, I start a little bit lower with year 7s and what in my perfect world I think they would, assuming that according to the national curriculum they've done all those things in primary school, but that's just not how the kids come to me with those skills. So if I've got year 7, I've got year 12, I can kind of fill in the gaps in the middle to make sure that I'm covering everything, so that when they get to year 12, they have the best opportunities possible. Did that answer the question?
So in terms of what guides our planning decisions, I work in an independent school, so we have opportunities to draw from the wisdom of VELS and other curriculum documents, but in terms of the 710 program, we have decided upon a curriculum. The head of department, who is very open to sort of working with his team, has created this curriculum document that guides what it is that we're doing. And what's really great about that curriculum document is that it means that teachers can sort of draw from their skills or expertise. So it's a document that doesn't lock us into, you all have to do this lesson on this day. It's a document that allows teachers to bring their own skills and interests in, and most importantly to be reflective of what the kids are, where the kids are at. There's also, obviously at the top end, we're guided by the VCE study designs, and at the end of the day, those kids have to demonstrate knowledge and skills on written and performance exams. So if we're not using the terminology that's within those study designs, we're disadvantaging our kids. And to a certain extent that does have a trickle-down effect, in that you're preparing ultimately even that year 7 boy for something that he's going to experience in year 12 drama. At the same time, it would be wrong to teach year 7 as a boiled down version of year 12. Each year level has its unique shape and flavour, and while you might be drawing from that terminology that's going to impact him later on, it shouldn't guide everything that you're doing. It'll be interesting to see what happens with national curriculum when that 7 to 10 is much more accountable than what it is at the moment for us.